Well, good afternoon, everybody. We will get started here in a few minutes. If you could just put your name and your organization in the chat box, then we would know who has been able to make it today. I know that Healthcare Authority will not be here today because it is a holiday, and there are some MCOs that are not available to come as well. But we just thought we'd utilize the time today to kind of explain to everybody our community resilience campaign that we're working on. And so that's what we're going to focus most of the time on today for the first half. We'll just wait a few more minutes as people are coming in. It looks like there's still some people jumping on, so we'll wait a few more minutes. Okay, well, just another comment, if people are still jumping on, can you please put your name and your organization in the chat box? That would be helpful. But we will go ahead and get started. So today, because I know that it's a holiday, and so some people are not here and some people are, we wanted to use the first half of this to be able to share with you some information that we've been working on. I know that last meeting I brought up the resilience campaign that we are working on, and so today we're going to go more in detail and share with you the information that we have received from Dr. Mauseth, and Mauseth is going to present it to us today. And so, Dr. Mauseth, did you want me to give you the chance to use the screen, or did you want me to do it for you?
I'm really okay either way, so it's whatever you're comfortable with.
I'll just give it to you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, so I will turn it over to you. And hold on. There you are. There you go. You should be able to have it now.
Yep. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Oops, that's
sure.
Not right. I'm trying to make the screen bigger. There we go. Okay.
And
I hope. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to real quick before you start. It's attached. I just attached. We put it all in together in a sort of toolkit. We're hoping to be able to have it put together nicer, but for now, it is attached to the meeting, and so I'll let her go ahead and go.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm just here to give you a little bit of information about how you could go about sort of presenting this information, talking about it in your communities, working with it at a variety of different levels, whether that's with clients or with families or with colleagues or what have you. This general concept is the one that the Accountable Community of Health has decided to kind of go with. And the way that it's going to be phased out, there's a lot of details that are sort of yet to be worked out. But what I'm hoping to do today is just to present you with the content and talk to you a little bit about what to emphasize when you are teaching it and training the concepts to other people. I also want to start out just by mentioning that I recognize that English isn't going to be the only language that this information is presented in. And because these things are acronyms, COPE, CALM, and CARE are all acronyms for specific activities and specific sort of things that people can do. So it works really well in English, but it doesn't necessarily translate into other languages very well. And I guess what I want to say really clearly with regard to that is just that it's much more important to me, and I think in the concept of resilience, that the ideas are the things that are communicated rather than the individual language pieces. So to the extent that we can, find words and find phrases that sort of match, that's great. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to really make sure that the content and the concept is what people are getting, rather than the acronym itself. So COPE, CALM, and CARE are the acronyms, and it's going to be multiple phases, and it's going to be oriented towards how to engage kids from 5 to 12 with this information, how to engage kids from 13 to 18, and then people over 18. So those are the sort of 3 population groups that we're working with. And I'm just going to share some of the content with you today. So if you have questions about it as I go, please ask. In the chat, I have the chat box up, which is why the PowerPoint isn't in presentation mode, so I can see both of those things at the same time, and answer your questions or offer points of clarification as I'm going along. So COPE, CALM, and CARE, based on a lot of work that I've done on resilience over the years and also on disaster relief, these 3 models are things that I developed because I think that they, together, between the 3 of them, they really capture all of the behavioral health and sort of the psychosocial pieces related to what people can benefit from and how we can grow resilience in the context of a disaster. These are things that can be used regardless of whether or not you're in a recovery mode, and regardless of whether or not you're in an impact or whatever phase of the disaster recovery and response cycle we happen to be in, which right now for Washington State, we're in the disillusionment phase, and then it looks like we're headed into a pretty significant and somewhat worrisome additional wave of illness here, which is a different thing. But my point is that regardless of where we are in the cycle, all of these skills can be leveraged, they can be used, and they're just good things in general. So it's not that they're time specific. The interventions themselves aren't time specific relative to a disaster cycle or where somebody is. There are ways to also make sure people understand these concepts in a developmentally appropriate context, and I'll say more about that as I go. So thinking skills, doing skills, and being skills. The COPE model is basically it's basically junior woodchuck CBT. It's basically getting people to understand that they can learn how to change their thinking, and that their thinking and their feeling and their behavior are all connected. So you can use whatever metaphor or analogy sort of works for you, gears in a system, or when I'm teaching this with a client, I use a triangle on a piece of paper, right? There's lots of ways to teach CBT. And it's not like there's a particularly right way, right? So you just want to, there's always that psychoeducational component that everything is connected, and by changing one, you change the other 2. I really emphasize when I'm training this that feelings are by far the easiest to notice. Those are things we tend to notice physiologically, right? Because we get warm or we get flushed or our heart rate increases, but feelings are the hardest to change. So I really encourage people to try to identify and then change either a thought or a behavior rather than a feeling, right? And feelings can come along next. So again, the acronym doesn't always work in a translated context, but these are the concepts. So check for your automatic thought, recognize what it is that you're thinking automatically about COVID or about your family or whatever the thing is that you're thinking that gets in the way, like a thought that causes a problem for you, right? And then observing the emotion and the behavior connected to your reaction, like what are the manifestations of that in your life? Do you crawl in bed and put the covers over your head? Do you eat a tub of ice cream? Like, what are the feelings and the behaviors that you engage in? And if you can get the people that you're training to actually write this out, the worksheets that I have developed for the health community have this like listed out where people can write down a thought, they can write down the emotion and the behavior connected to it, and then they can write down their alternative. The other point of emphasis when you're teaching this, if you haven't taught CBT in a while, right? The other point of emphasis is really that the alternative thought has to be reasonable. It has to be. And if it's not reasonable, nobody's going to practice it. It has to be just slightly different than the original thought in order to create long-term change. So a little bit of detail around this. What are your options? Check for how you're responding, identify the options. When I get stuck with a client who is really, really depressed, oftentimes they have trouble coming up with new ones. Identifying and observing this chain here, right? The way that your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected, that's usually pretty easy for people. But the hardest part is this one. What is the alternative? What's a reasonable alternative? And people who are really depressed have trouble coming up with reasonable alternatives. So I would just say that to the extent possible, you want to have them come up with it. You don't want to do it for them because they're less likely to retain it and less likely to practice it if it comes from the outside. So any alternative thought, even if it's just slightly a different direction, is going to be helpful for folks. And then emphasizing the practicing. If somebody has the same negative automatic thought 50 times a day, what you want to do is start out by just changing it, 2 or 3 times if they can, recognizing it 2 or 3 times, and then trying something different 2 or 3 times rather than 50, then going from there. I use all kinds of other suggestions when I'm teaching this, like, if you want to learn a different language, you have to practice the new language. And if you want to have your brain learn how to think in a different way, you have to practice that too. So the execution part of this is really important. And the level of people's ability to be able to do that is going to vary dramatically depending on, how depressed they are, what other conditions are in their life, or how much, if they're fully in fight or flight and they have too much cortisol happening, they're probably not going to be able to execute this very well. And so for those folks, you would want to emphasize the calm part of the model. So the COPE is the CBT, the calm is the physiological arousal control. It's the parasympathetic nervous system stuff. Again, I recognize you all are familiar with this, how this works, but I really want to emphasize how to teach it based on my work with all different disaster survivors all over the world and in the United States. So it's really interesting to me how few people realize that they can learn how to control their body. A lot of people see what happens to them in terms of an anxiety or a stress response as something like the weather, that it's just like, oh, this is happening to me and I have no control over it. But when you empower them by giving them the psychoeducational component that actually they can control it, that actually goes a long way right there. It's like, I didn't know that this was coming from within, and if I work on it, I can learn how to manage it. If they think it's external, right? If they think it's the weather, that's a problem. There's a problem therapeutically, and it also it doesn't lend itself well to active coping. It makes it more likely that people are going to avoid the things that make them anxious rather than addressing it head on. So the calm is about doing. Calm yourself by, these are just the basic things: controlling breathing and heart rate, attending to the present moment. I'm gonna like sort of reference bits of mindfulness here without fully getting into it. Some of the sensory techniques associated with DBT and mindfulness and biofeedback, to be frank. Acknowledging and listening to thoughts and feelings, and then mastering that. And it's practice and execution. So the acronym is not going to work in all cases, but those are the pieces of it. So focusing first on breathing and heart rate. I tell teenage clients regularly that it's impossible to have a panic attack and be deep breathing at the same time. And I'll tell them I'll pay them $20 if they can do it. And obviously that's a joke, but the point is that really acknowledging and letting people know who don't have any background in this stuff, right? That if your body stays calm, if you can learn how to control your response, you actually won't feel anxious because they're totally connected to each other. Most people don't realize that. The handouts and the worksheets that I have provided have instructions on how to teach square breathing or bubble breathing with kids. There's lots of ways you can do this. Slow, deep breaths. Y'all know deep breathing, so I don't need to get into that. But square breathing is also called tactical breathing. And depending on your audience, if you're working with people who might respond better to that label, it is something that they teach in the special forces. They teach tactical breathing, which is basically square breathing, which is about engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. So different vocabulary, different strategies for different demographic groups, because people are going to respond differently to this stuff. And people are going to have different questions, right, about how it works. So the attending piece is sort of a nod to mindfulness and a little bit of DBT. attending to the present moment, like right now I'm okay. Most anxiety, as you all know, is about stuff that either hasn't happened yet or already happened and you can't do anything to change anyway. So getting people to use sensory neuron engagement to override those anxiety thoughts is really, really powerful. Again, the worksheets give you specifics, but I use things like putting an orange in the freezer, peeling a frozen orange, putting your hands in a bucket of ice water. As we know, our hands have a lot of sensory neurons in them packed in there together. And if you can leverage temperature with your skin, that's a really, really efficient way to short circuit a lot of anxiety. And it's really using whatever tips and tricks you already use, like in your practice or in your personal toolbox of awareness. Any of those things will work for this. It's about just the concepts here that are important to get across. And then listening and noticing, letting things wash and acknowledging and not getting stuck. Part of rumination that we know is so difficult for people is just like the hamster wheel getting stuck on the one thought. And it's acknowledging the thought and then it's moving on. And you can use, again, whatever metaphor or analogy that makes sense for you. Mastering, again, this is a nod to the practicing and the execution. So you are in charge. There's lots of sort of cognitive techniques around this. When I'm working with teenagers, I ask them to come up with something they can tell themselves when they feel like they're starting to panic, like, I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time for this right now, and I'm gonna focus on this other thing instead. And even though that seems somewhat sort of dismissive and maybe flip, it's also very effective, or it can be for some people. So there's a lot of nuances in the training of this, depending on those demographic groups and the level of background that folks are bringing. The worksheets walk you through progressive muscle relaxation. There are options for how to teach this, and they also, you can teach progressive muscle relaxation to kids in the form of like the pill bug exercise, which I'm not sure that any of you are familiar with, maybe you are, but it's basically getting kids to scrunch up like a pill bug, and then flop down on the ground and get really floppy muscles, right? And then you have them scrunch up again, really tight into a small little ball, and you count to like 3 or 4, and then flop down again. And it actually helps kids recognize their own ability to control their muscle tension in a really kind of gamey, kind of subtle, fun way that they enjoy. I've seen that work with kids quite a bit. So this goes with bubble breathing. There's techniques for kids, right? There's techniques for adults as well. And then teenagers, as most of you probably know, a teenager, a 16-year-old can be 16 going on 25 or 16 going on 12. Kids are really, really different. Adolescents and teens are really different in terms of how they, where they are, right, developmentally. So you might want to use more of the younger kid-oriented stuff for teaching this, or you might want to focus right on the adult stuff with the teenage population, either way. Okay, so you take cope and you take calm. So those are the starting points here for how to think and how to practice your emotion, your physiological regulation. And the care model is about really the sort of mental and emotional component of resilience. It's about how to identify and orient for yourself how you can connect to things that are bigger than you and what really matters, like what your core values are, who you want to be as a person, and to let those things sort of guide your choices and behavior. In my clinical experience, and then also some of my academic experience, I guess, I find that a lot of anxiety and depression comes from people not being able, they think they're not able in a lot of ways, and in some cases they aren't, but to be the person that they want to be, whether that's family expectations or social expectations or pressure from life. They're living in a way that's inconsistent with the person they really want to be. So this model is designed to help them identify what those characteristics are and very, very slowly start engaging with who that is, who they want to be. So care skills are connection, acceptance, reason, and engagement. And again, I know that the acronym falls flat depending on the translation, but this is the concept. So care is connection. That's anything, right? They can be anything. It doesn't matter if they're small, and it doesn't matter if it's just one other person. It can be a pet, it can be to God or a higher power. Anything that connects us to something bigger than us is important here. And that's an essential ingredient for resilience, just right there. So connection is key. And then acceptance, right? That's accepting of change. That's being flexible. That's being adaptive to our circumstances and not getting stuck. It's about navigating unexpected change, and then to the extent possible, as we've all been doing in 2020, creating new structure. So we flex and we accept and we go with what's changed, but then we create some structure around ourselves. So that's been really difficult, particularly for kids with all the changes in school and parents having to navigate, working and teaching at home. But this one has been a really, really hard piece of it. But part of what goes along with accepting also is letting go. Like it's about accepting that we're not going to perform, 100% across all of our tasks. It's about accepting that our kids aren't going to perform and have the performance expectations in all these areas too. So letting go of those expectations is part of the acceptance process as well. And then being reasoned, being intentional. The handouts that I've provided in terms of the actual worksheets, it's not called the pyramid activity on the worksheets, it's just a list, but it's basically getting people to identify core values. So this is like, who do you want to be? What are the characteristics of the person that you want to be? And they can be anything. And it's really helpful when you're teaching this. I do this activity with every single one of my clients. And I just have to say, it's helpful to not offer suggestions to folks for what those words should be. You're just asking them to describe the characteristics of who they want to be. The other thing I'll say too, I'm kind of getting near the end of this general presentation, but when you're teaching this, it's perfectly appropriate to do one section at a time, maybe teach the COPE skills in one unit with a group, and then the CALM skills and then the CARE skills. Like how it actually plays out is going to vary depending on if you're trying to work on an individual level with people, if you're trying to train big groups of people, if you're trying to present this in a webinar kind of a format, you're gonna do different tactics, right? But the idea with the list of core values is that when you're teaching it to whomever you're teaching it, you want to have them come up with those things. The one that I give an example of when I'm working with clients is honest. Like that's a core value that most people would agree with at some level. And then you want to think about all of the roles that you play in your life and how honest you are across all of the roles. Just using honest as an example, you could pick anything. Clients frequently pick broad things like happy. They want to be more happy. And it's like, that's fine, but break that down a little bit. Funny, creative, kind. My core values include patience and gratitude. Those are really big for me. Those are hard ones for me. So, you can offer suggestion if you feel like the people you're teaching or the clients that you're working with are really getting stuck, but it's better to have them come up with it. I've actually had a couple clients also, when we do this activity, completely break down because no one's ever asked them who they wanted to be before. And even though that might feel like a bit of a luxury, I think that on every level, on every social level at least, if people ask themselves that question and then find small ways to be closer to that person every day, to who they want to be, they're going to have less anxiety and depression. At least that's clinically what I've seen. And then the last one is the bigger picture, right? What are we part of here? Mindful living means a commitment or an association with something, social interest, right? That's bigger than you. Motivation, purpose that is going to help get you out of the bed in the morning, keep you grounded in in something else, something that's beside what's in your own life and environment. So yeah, those are the aspects of COPE, CALM, CARE. I'm happy to go back over any of the pieces of them, but like I said, they can be broken up if you're teaching this to someone else. If you have it on an individual level or on an individual basis, I would recommend splitting it up and doing it over a couple different sessions. And if you're going to do it for a big group, you can choose to do either kind of like I'm presenting it to you, which is a lot, like drinking from a fire hose kind of, or setting it up in separate ways. I'm not sure how the Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health is going to want to suggest that, but I'm just here to give you information about the basics here and then get feedback or take questions about how you would teach this info. So yeah,
Dr.
Diane or Carol, yeah.
Can you go through maybe the tip sheets that kind of, I could pull them up for you if you'd like, or you can pull them up, whatever's easiest.
Sorry, I was muted and I was talking to you. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm happy to pull up those worksheets if you'd like me to. To do that.
Yeah. Or I'll pull it up because it kind of shows in that toolkit. So let me just pull up what I have, and then
sure.
we can kind of, does that work? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I will take back control. Maybe. I think I have it now. Okay, so let me get this up here. So attached to the meeting invite. So here's the first thing we wanted to have is basically the tip sheet about what this is all about. And
right.
So I'll let you go ahead and discuss it.
So if you scroll through, the background bullet points are just the really high level, like the 30,000-foot view about why this matters and why the focus on resilience. Like, why do we even need this right now? So it's about informing people and educating them. That's the point of this sheet. That COVID is a natural disaster. We know how people respond to disasters. This chart here is from SAMHSA. The Department of Health has made their own adaptation of this chart, but it's basically the same pattern. And understanding where we are in the pattern is the first place to start, right? We're in the disillusionment phase, but again, cope, calm, and care is not isolated to any particular phase of the disaster response. Yeah, okay. You can go ahead and scroll down. Yep. Sorry, I don't know. So the chart is just indicating.
I'm trying to get it so that I can view just like the page. Hold on. Oh. I'm sorry, I'm having a.
And if you go back, there you go. I was just about to help. Sorry.
Does that work? That's okay. I thought I'd just go like this.
So, so basically it's like, this is where we are in the disaster. So that's more COVID specific, right? And then the second page is the normalizing piece. That's the validation of what people are experiencing that leads them into, now what do I do about it, right? So cope, calm, and care are what to do about it. But this tip sheet was developed to give people information about what's going on and what's normal. So I broke it down into emotional, physical, behavioral, and cognitive. The ones that I'm hearing about the most are the ones that are at the top there, the cognitive and the emotional, like just the inability to control emotion regulation and mood. And then also the cognitive stuff, like I can't remember anything, I can't focus, I'm really confused all the time, I'm getting lost in details, that kind of stuff. And just having that information and recognizing it's not just you really, really helps people. So this tip sheet is the first thing. This is the psychoeducational piece. These are normal responses, and that's key. And then from here, you get into the, okay, now what do you do about it? So you're having these concerns, you're having these normal reactions, what do we do? And then, sorry, Diane, I didn't send you the PowerPoint that I just showed has a few changes in it, but it's okay. It's the same content, basically. So you can include the PowerPoint that we just went over. There is a feedback sheet that was that other thing, the other document that just is a pre and post test about information. So depending on how you're presenting this, right, you can ask people like, what's your baseline level of knowledge before you have the info, and then what is it after? And then these are the tip sheets. So this is the what does it say? This is just general tip sheet that explains what cope, calm, and care is. And it's the how, what, who, when, and where. So it has more information about how to get access to this educational material, what the model is, what it's designed to do, who can learn it. And then the next page, sorry, the one on the right-hand side of the screen is the one for parents and caregivers for kids ages 5 to 12. So that's, here's what you explain. Here's the psychoeducational information at the top, like, brains and bodies have certain things that happen to them, and explain it in a developmentally appropriate way. And then you can explain, how to do the cope skills, how to change your thoughts by finding a different one. There's little tips on these sheets for, younger kids versus slightly older kids and that kind of a thing. So yeah. There's the pill bug exercise that I was mentioning. So this is the calm tip sheet, or sorry, calm and care there on the bottom. So that it's a two-sided document for kids from 5 to 12, basically. How to do the calm model, the breathing, the pill bug thing, and then how to talk to young kids about the resilience pieces, which is, that's pretty heady cognitive stuff, or it can be, right? But we see all the time, there are examples of kids like starting a lemonade stand to raise money for the food bank or for something that they care about. And so it's really about actionable items. What can young kids do to feel like they're part of something that's important too? So that's on there. And then the next one is for kids 13 to 18, teens. Yep. So how to talk to young adolescents and teens, and then how to teach them cope, calm, and care with specific examples. Yeah, same kind of, some of that is a little bit of an overlap. You could, like I said, depending on the developmental level of the teenager, you can treat them more like an adult in terms of the information, or you want to stick to more of the kid model. It's fine either way. And then I adapted some of the care skills to things that teenagers are more likely to do or be interested in. There's so many things online too that aren't even listed here, but lots of options for how people can get. There's apps that people can use to control their breathing. Even like a smartwatch or a Fitbit has like a breathing function where you can practice deep breathing and slow down your heart rate using the technology. And teenagers are doing that anyway, right? So engaging them in the media and in the ways that they're already using is going to be effective here. And then there's a separate tip sheet for each of the skills, like a one-page kind of a deal for cope, calm, and care for adults. And so it walks people through the process for cope. It gives a sets of skills like a menu for calm, where people can practice deep breathing. They can practice the biofeedback heart rate regulation. They can practice any variety of skills on the calm tip sheet. And then it goes into more detail too about care, which is on the next one. I don't know. Do you have that one too?
I guess I must have missed that one.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's a care one too, but that's cool. Anyway, you get the idea. So those are all part of it. I think it's on there. It should be.
It's right here. Oh no, that's the care for.
That's the teen one.
Maybe I do need to get that from you. The care for adults.
Oh, I don't have that. I didn't send that to you. Okay, I will double check.
Nope.
See where that is.
Yeah, no problem. So, is there any questions that anybody have any questions for her at all about this? So, we're in the process of, we have an RFP out to have this information we're for a media campaign, and we're hoping to get that taken care of today. This week, and so we should be able to have that by next week, and chose who we're going to go with to make these more, prettied up, and then also have a website for it as well. She also has provided a resource. We're going to start a resource page for it as well. And then, Chris had a question. Let's see, what does he say?
This is Chris. Hey, I was just going to say that this is a great opportunity for the entire community, that if we can pull together the training piece of what behavioral health providers are doing, and then be able to partner with key constituents like school districts and be able to have some early adopters, then we're going to be able to really have an impact in the community. And this is a perfect time for us to be able to roll this out. So I'm excited. I think this is such a well-developed project that if we can get the marketing campaign and some early adopters, then this is going to have a big impact in our communities.
Yeah, and we're really thankful that, we're hoping that Catholic Charities is going to help us with, the schools with Catholic Charities, but then also, I know that you guys work very heavily with some of the schools. And so I really want to have some of our other behavioral health providers that already are going into the schools, that have those connections with the different schools in our area, to be able to help roll this out, especially for, you know, the teenagers and even the young kids at this time. I think this is a great model, and I think that having your guys' help with trying to get the resources out and the information out to those that I really hope that we can have some partners with you guys here, not only using it with your patients and consumers that work with you guys, but also help us try to get the message out to the community. So we are going to have some committee meetings and work, you know, trying to figure out how we're going to go with this. And so if there's anybody that would like to be part of that committee, please reach out to me so that I can add you to that. I know that I've tried to add the ones that had volunteered from the last meeting to the last meeting committee meeting that we just had, but we're going to be having quite a few meetings as we're trying to, you know, plan a path forward and getting the information out to schools, to cities, officials, and trying to get this information out. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns or anything that they want to bring up? But I know Dr. Mauseth has to leave here shortly, so if anybody has any questions for her, I wanted to see if you had any of those that we could get that out before she has to leave.
Diane?
So Diane, this is Carol. I was just wondering, so for those behavioral health providers that might want to go into the schools and do the training, what are they supposed to contact you, or how are you going to know who is already in the schools right now? I mean, we assume that there are some behavioral health providers like Catholic Charities that are already in the schools that might want to do this kind of training. Are they supposed to let you know?
Yeah, so if you could let me know, I know that there are some, I just don't know, you know, we want to try to cover all the 9 counties, you know, so like some of the rural counties, I know that they're, you know, I don't know if it's probably behavioral health or, you know, in GCACH, maybe it's Merit, you know, so I know that there are some providers that are actually in the schools already. So if you could, please reach out to me so that we can, you know, get you involved and, you know, plan a path forward for how we're going to establish getting these to the school districts. I know that the ESD 123 was going to come on today. We also have some people from the Yakima Nation on today. So I'm hoping that, you know, we really want to cover all areas that we can, so we can really try to get this out to our community. And the best people to get this information out, you know, and getting our behavioral health providers out there involved, and I think this is a really good way to do that.
Diane?
Yes.
This is Dana. And I agree with Chris. I think this is a really great opportunity. And at Lourdes, we have our Children's Day program where it's a school-based program here, and we work really closely with our school districts for those students. But we can certainly reach out to our contacts as well and see what we can do to support this and help roll it out too. And I'd like to be a part of that committee as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that would be awesome. And I think that you know, having you guys help shape the messaging will really help as well. You know, we, you know, want to make it as creative as we can. You know, I know that we can maybe make some, you know, sheets for the little kids with other tips and different tips of ways to, include it. And a lot of times with adults, maybe humor works for them. So, I mean, there's all different ways that we can go about this. And that's why I really want to include you guys in part of, it crafting and making it really impactful for our community. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mauseth, for taking your time today to teach us this. And we will be in touch, and we'll get those. I will start sending out those committee. I really want to try to have committee meetings at least bi-weekly. And so if you really want to be part of it, please reach out to me, especially while we're, developing this whole, once we get it up and going, I think then we'll, be able to not have committee meetings so frequently. But as we're trying to plan a path forward and how we're going to roll this out to the community, it's kind of a little time crunch, and it's kind of, I know we kind of threw a lot at you guys today, but it's really needed. And so I really hope that, that people will want to participate in that.
Can Diane, let me just add something really briefly. Because I'm a clinician too, and I hear what's going on with my clients and also experience it. I want to just recognize for all of you that, we as providers and as clinicians and as people who work with people who are hurting, this is, we're all in it too. None of us are personally immune from anything having to do with COVID and the response. And not only are we personally dealing with it in our own lives, but we're constantly, listening and hearing the experiences of other people, which are incredibly difficult right now, but also just this year in general. So I guess, this meeting is it's reminding me of what happened at the Seattle U faculty meeting. We had our meeting last Friday, and everybody is just really tired. And I just want to validate it's just the exhaustion that we all are experiencing right now is so incredibly real and powerful that I don't want this campaign, at least from my perspective, to feel like a burden on people. But I do want to emphasize that everything that's in this, I think if we focus on our own resilience, right? If we focus on the pieces of this also that we can apply personally as providers and as clinicians, it's going to help us find the energy to, do more with it. And nobody has any more bandwidth, right? I just want to acknowledge that. But I think we can use the time that we have and work in this resilience direction, and that's going to help us too. So I really want to encourage everybody, and I really am grateful for your time and your attention to this, and just acknowledgement of that, none of us are immune from this either. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you so much for that. I can't stress that enough. And in fact, when we sent out a survey, the pre-survey, to a lot of places, and we also want to try to get out to as many people so we can show, how this campaign is really going to impact the community. But it's all of us. So it's a personal resilience as well as a community resilience. Kind of starts with each of us. Yep. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for that. And we'll let you go ahead and take off, and we'll go on with our meeting. I'm not sure. I didn't have anybody reach out to me with any questions for the MCOs this month. So if anybody has any questions, I know we have a few MCOs on the line today, that if you wanted to bring up any questions or anything, any concerns for that, would you please bring it up now, and we can see if we can get your questions answered.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So Diane,
yes.
Could we just get a sense if there's any behavioral health providers that are interested in doing this training in any of the schools besides Chris?
And then we also have Dana Oda. She's going
Oh, yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
she's offered as well. And Merritt, I'm not sure if they're on today. She wasn't going to be on today, so I know that they had mentioned that they wanted to be part of it as well. Jamie, okay, great, thank you, Jamie. That's from Somerset, and then I'm hoping, I don't see anybody from QVH on here. I'll send out an email again to all the providers, and see, I sent out one last week asking if there was anybody who was interested in, Sarah Clark says she's interested. Thank you. So I'm hoping I'll do another touch base with you guys to see how you feel about that. And then we can invite everybody to the next meeting, which will be next week. So I will go ahead and do that. There was another question that we wanted to ask our providers, and Carol, do you remember what that question was?
Yikes. You're relying on an old memory.
So,
hold on, I'll get it.
Diane, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Wes. Does it relate to the Recovery Treatment Center at
Yes.
Trios?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Wes.
You could ask the question, Wes.
Actually, go ahead.
Okay, so we were asked by the Recovery Coalition to ask if how the behavioral health providers felt about the facility that they're hoping to establish here in Kennewick over at the old Kennewick General site. And so we just wanted to ask how, if there were anything how people felt about that, and if you guys were supportive of this, what are they calling it, Wes? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, so this was, and Jamie, you can add to this because you're part of the coalition as well, and anybody else that's part of the coalition. It's called the Two Rivers Behavioral Health Recovery Center. It's going to be based at the old Auburn campus of what was Kennewick General Hospital and now is Trios Health. It's meant to be a center that will actually cover a range of services. One of the key features of the facility, though, will be clinical detox. But there'll also be behavioral health services provided as well. And Jimmy, help me out here. There might actually be some sort of housing as well. In any case, it's going to be a multi-use facility that's directed mainly towards substance use disorder, but behavioral health in general. So what they're looking for is endorsements. People like the Franklin County Sheriff. I'm trying to think of some of the other individuals who've reached out, but Comprehensive Healthcare and others, I think, have endorsed the facility, and they were asking us for an endorsement. So I think we're looking for feedback from the group, whether they see the need for this, and if they feel a need for everybody to endorse it.
Yeah, so it's going to be primarily SUD. They're actually looking at acute withdrawal management, that including Ricky's Law. And so it will include some other things that longer term psychiatric beds, longer term SUD residential. They're going to look at some transitional housing all kinds of services. But obviously it's still in the works through the hospital district. So the Recovery Coalition is an advocacy group, but it's really happening through the hospital district. And so the Recovery Coalition is lining up with Representative Matt Banky, and he actually helped the Recovery Coalition members establish getting signatory endorsements, just saying that, yes, we think this would be appropriate for our community. We think that this would be beneficial. Having access to care, obviously it's detrimental because we're the only metropolitan community in the state of Washington that does not have SUD residential, for example. And so we want to be able to have services and stop sending our own residents out of county across the state to get services when we could have them in our own community. And so, and it kind of aligns with the state goals of serving people within the community for behavioral health needs, getting them out of Eastern State Hospital, Western State Hospital, things like that. And so we're going around to different entities, law enforcement, medical health, behavioral health, everywhere, and just getting signatory endorsements saying, yes, we think this would be beneficial to our community.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie, this is Carol. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up is I don't want to take any business away from organizations that might be in competition with this recovery center. I don't know as much about it as you guys do. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of this because it is going to be run by, I think that the public hospital district, or I don't know if it's a collaboration. I don't know what the governance structure is. I just don't want to, you know, impact anybody's revenue sources with a new competitor.
So the hospital district won't run it. They're the landlords, essentially.
Okay.
Right.
And they're going to be focusing on providing services that don't already exist. That's the whole point, is they're going to be bringing in things that we don't already have, that we're sending people out of our communities to receive.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thanks for that clarification. I just want everybody to be aware of it, that if we write a letter of endorsement, that we're not trying to gorge anybody's bottom line.
Correct. Like we don't have acute withdrawal management. We don't have SUD residential. We don't have long-term SUD residential. You know, like there's just things that we don't have. We don't have a lot of transitional housing. We don't have, I mean, there's just lots of things that we don't have. And so instead of sending people on a Greyhound bus and sending them 3, 4, 5 counties over, away from their families, away from their behavioral health providers, away from their support system, why don't we, you know, become contenders to be able to provide that in our communities? And then the health district would just be literally the landlords. The hospital district. They don't provide any services at all.
Right.
And this is Joel from Community Health Plan of Washington, and I'm also a Recovery Coalition board member, and I wanted to thank Jamie for making that clarification about taking away services from providers. It is asking, the Recovery Coalition and the hospital district is asking for the partnership with outpatient providers, but there is no intention of providing intensive outpatient or outpatient services at this facility. Again, it's more right now looking at substance use disorder treatment, and also looking at co-occurring disorders as well. And then eventually, once that gets going in phase 2, looking at what other behavioral health or mental health services are needed in the community that can be provided at this facility.
Great, thank you for that. For all your guys' help with understanding that. I think that you cleared up a lot of things for us. And so, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that endorsement here Does anybody have any questions, anything else that they'd like to talk about today before we
Can I just jump in one more, just real quick? So the purpose of the signatory endorsements also is so that we can then take them to our 9 legislators and ask for funding. So we're seeking multiple funding options, and Matt Banky has graciously accepted the role of being kind of our unofficial lead kind of point person. And so the more signatory endorsements we have from a wide range of different community agencies and entities and community members, kind of the better shot we have at showing the broad sweeping support of our community. And then we're able to take that to all the different legislators, and we're going to be asking for capital funds. So that's the purpose of the signatory endorsements. It's not just to like throw your name on a piece of paper just because.
Yeah, definitely. And it is needed in this community, especially since we don't have any of those services here in this area. So it's really needed. So by showing the support of the people in this group, it would be really helpful for hopefully to be able to get the funding that they need. And if you need information about how, where to send that, you can reach out to Jamie, you can reach out to me, and we can get you that information. Okay, I think that it doesn't sound like anybody has anything else that they need to talk about today. So we will go ahead and adjourn, and I'll be following up with an email requesting for people to be part of the committee for this resilience campaign, and so watch for that. All right, well, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Diane, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.